Hey guys, it's Gianna, MidwiFay. Today I want to talk about what happens when your water breaks. Oh my gosh, my water broke. Oh, what's going to happen now? All about water breaking. Let's get into it. So I think a lot of people, especially first-time birthers, think when your water breaks, it's going to be like in the movies or the TV. It's going to be like this huge gush of fluid all over everything. How embarrassing. Looks like I peed all over myself. It's going to leak out. And then I'm going to feel this intense thing and I'm going to be like, the baby is coming out. Yeah. Most of the time it is not that kind of a situation, okay? So I want to talk about some realistic scenarios of what it looks like when your water breaks. I'm going to start this video off with a disclaimer that I'm only discussing full term single, so not twins, multiples, triplets, anything like that. Head down babies, okay? So when I'm doing this whole discussion of scenarios of when your water breaks and recommendations, I am not referring to if you are preterm before 37 weeks, if your baby is not in a head down position, or if you've got multiples going on in there, okay? Or if you have a known placental abnormality, something called placenta previa, where we know your placenta is covering your cervix, okay? So I'm talking to the majority of people who are low risk, pregnant people who've got one baby in there, head down, and they're full term. Let's get into the different scenarios. So let's first talk about how do I even know if my water broke, okay? I would say that there's different scenarios when your water breaks. Okay, here's my baby in the sac with the placenta, oh baby, okay? And so when your water breaks, that is when there is a crack in this sac, okay? Either there's a small tear, either it starts leaking through the side, wherever. We don't always know why, okay? And technically there's two sacs around the baby. There's a chorion and the amnion. So depending on where the water breaks, you might experience a large gush. Okay, a lot of women say it feels like a pop, or maybe they're like, oh, it felt like the baby kicked really hard, and then all of a sudden I felt this fluid. It feels warm. It, again, is a large amount, okay? Now, some people think, oh my gosh, am I peeing myself? It's the first thing you think, and then you're like, no, I don't need to pee. It just keeps coming out no matter what I do. That's one way that people experience their water breaking. It's like a large pop or feel like the baby moved really quickly, and then psh, fluid everywhere. Yes, it's kind of dramatic like in the shows. There is a lot of fluid in the amniotic sac, so you're going to want to make sure you've got your big pads or even adult diapers or whatever on standby, but it's not going to necessarily fall to the floor, make audible noise and like gush like you see in the movies, okay? So that's one scenario of your water breaking. Another common way that water breaks is a little more subtle. So women will notice it'll feel like leaking. Maybe they felt a pop or something like that vaginally, and it'll feel like leaking or constant wetness. You go to the bathroom, you're like, am I peeing on myself? What is this? Is this discharge? Discharge is going to be more mucousy or have different consistencies, different colors. Amniotic fluid is really watery, okay? So it's going to feel and look like water. Hopefully it's clear. It might be pinkish tinged, and it might be green or brown. If it is, that's meconium. That's definitely something you're going to want to let your provider know about. But it's more watery feeling than discharges. So sometimes people experience a leak that isn't a huge gush, okay? So how do you know if you continually are leaking? What I always recommend is get up, go to the bathroom, change your pad, see how long it takes you to need to change your pad again. Get up, stand up, move your hips around, jump up and down a little bit. See if it keeps coming when you do that, okay? Whenever your water breaks, however it breaks, obvious gush or small leak, it's going to continue leaking. It's going to keep happening until baby is born. So when someone comes to me in triage with a story about they're not sure if their water broke or if it's just discharge, if they didn't come in wearing a pad, if they're not concerned about the leaking still happening, that always makes me think, maybe it didn't really break. So back to these kind of ways that water can break. Either water breaks before the start of active labor or during active labor. And this is an important distinction to make. So when water breaks before active labor, this is called premature rupture of membranes, or PROM. Not premature in terms of before 37 weeks. I'm just saying premature in terms of before strong and regular contractions. So maybe you're asleep, you're eating dinner, you're doing whatever, you're not really feeling anything, and all of a sudden you notice pop and gush, leaking, whatever it is, okay? That is premature rupture of membranes. Usually when this happens, this is a sign that labor is coming for sure. We want to make sure the body is going into labor within a certain number of hours of your water breaking. But if your water breaks without you having had contractions first, that's not necessarily, oh my gosh, yes, we need to go to the hospital right now, I'm in labor. Please watch my Sure Signs of Labor. I talk more about that in that video. But when your water breaks like this without contractions, it's a time to start really observing. Definitely call or page your provider, your midwife or your OB. Let them know that your water broke, what time, the color. Again, it should be clear, maybe pinkish. Now we don't want it to be green or brown, or really have an odor. And then you're going to want to know your group B strep, your GBS status. That's going to be important for determining whether or not you should go to the hospital right now. If your GBS is positive, you're going to want to head into the hospital for antibiotics. And if it's negative, you have some time to stay at home and wait to see if you start to feel contractions pick up. This is a scenario, PROM, premature rupture membranes, that I really recommend that you talk to your OB about before labor, because you're just going to want to know what their recommendations and policies are when it comes to premature rupture membranes. And then the second scenario of your water breaking on its own is when you're already in labor, okay? So either in early labor or active labor. You know, say you've been starting to feel contractions coming regularly, you're starting to time them, you went on a walk, you're timing them more, they're starting to get intense. Maybe they're not so intense yet, but they're regular, and then you notice that pop, that gush, or that leaking starting. That's a scenario where likely your labor is going to pick up in intensity after this point. The bag of waters is gone, that cushion that baby's in is gone. Usually the intensity of what you experience starts to increase at that point. So I always encourage, anyway, you're going to call your provider when your water breaks or when you think your water breaks. But if you've been contracting before, even if they've been mild, and especially if you've been contracting and they've been intense, and then your water breaks, usually this is a sure sign that, oh yeah, things are going to get going. You're going to be meeting your baby soon. So that was all about what happens when your water breaks, either before contractions or after contractions. Let me know, how did it happen to you? Did your water break like a big dramatic scene, or was it just a small leak? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to find out. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.